Hi, my name is Paul Sharpe. I'm the double bass professor at University of North Carolina School of the Arts. And I'd like to talk to you about scales. I have an unusual way of teaching scales, and that centers on the fact that my students in my studio, I expect to just start the day by playing all 12 major scales. And if they're more advanced, all 12 major and minor scales. The minor scales in whatever variety they want. For me as a young student, the hardest part about scales was actually kind of trying to retain the fingerings. It's really hard to memorize double bass fingerings for scales. So as a double bass professor, I've chucked that entire idea for my students. I've tried to dumb it down, or rather, maybe amp it up, in a way that they are able to actually play from memory all of the scales, but through only asking them to memorize maybe 3 basic concepts, all right? And this fingering concept I call how to play 2-octave major scales or 3-octave major scales and avoid open strings, all right? And the idea is that you use the same fingering for all the scales, or rather, as many scales as possible. And if there is a variation, it's a variation for a few things. There are 2 basic ways I do this. I'm going to talk about the first right now. The other is more advanced. It uses a pivot technique. But the first technique is basically based off of the idea that a scale can be built of 2 tetrachords, meaning 2 4-note groups, all right? And the fingering is the same for both groups. So if I'm starting with C major, I go 1, 4, 1, 2. Backing up a half step, 1, 2. All right, that first tetrachord works for every major scale. The second tetrachord to build the scale is, notice it's the same fingering but a 5th up, right? So we have these 2 things. Knowing that, I can play all 1-octave major scales if I just find the starting note, all right? So the next scale, for instance, would be, if I'm going through the circle of 5ths, G. Shift up. The next scale after that, going through the circle of 5ths, would be D. And the scale after that would be A. I'm going to skip E for right now because there's actually a variation to that one. So we'll then move on to B. And then we'll move on to G flat. All right, so I'm not going to play all of them for you, but you get the idea. You find your starting note and you go 1, 4, 1, 2, 1, 4, 1, 2. All right, E and F are different scales, and I use what I call a 4-up fingering, which means I play 4 notes up each string. This is a device just to help me remember it and help my students remember it. For the E scale, I go open E, and then I play 1, 4, 1, 4. And then I move to the next string while moving back a half a position. That's the first octave, all right? I play the last of the group of 4 going up. And then I play 1, 2, 1, 3. And then I go back 1, 2. All right? That's the E major scale. 4 up. 1, 4, 1, 4. 1, 4, 1, 4. 1, 2, 1, 3. And then to D sharp E. Okay? F is like it. It's a 4-up fingering, except this goes 1, 4, 2, 4. 1, 4, 2, 4. 1, 4, 1, 4. 1, 2, 4. All right? So that looks like this. That's your 2-octave F major. All right? So that's great. Now, one little wrinkle to this is that the second octave has two variations, depending on whether you start the scale on the E string or whether you start the scale on the A string, all right? If we look at the A string start, or C, we do our one octave. Then we're on the G string, right? And once we get to the G string, we can use kind of the fingering that works for all second and third octaves, which is 1-4, starting on the second scale degree, 1-4, 1-3, 1-2-3. And that pattern gets repeated. 1-3, 1-3, 1-2-3 for the third octave. So the pattern, starting on the second scale degree again, is 1-4, 1-3, 1-2-3. Depending on where you are on the bass, of course, it could be 1-3, 1-3, 1-2-3, as opposed to 1-4, 1-3, 1-2-3. All right? But knowing that pattern, you can play all third octaves of any scale, all right, with 1-3, 1-3, 1-2-3. You can play half of the second octaves, and those are the ones starting on the A string. All right? Just to illustrate a few others starting on the A string, let's try D. There's your 1-4, 1-2. 1-4, 1-2. Now we go 1-3, 1-3, 1-2-3. And we want to do a third octave, so 1-3, 1-3, 1-2-3. All right? So there's your D major scale. Works the same for anything that you'd start on the A string. And I'd go up to E flat on the E string. And then, of course, you switch to E flat if you start on the A string. Then, of course, you switch to the E string. And let's take G. You do the first tetrachord, 1-4, 1-2, then you move up to the fifth scale degree, and do the 1-4, 1-2 again. Now here, I introduce a pivot, all right? I pivot up to the second scale degree, A, then pivot back to the position I just left and play B. And then there, I hit C with 2. It's a straight up kind of Simandl-ish fingering. 1-2, 1-4, 1-2. And from that point, I use the 1-3, 1-3, 1-2-3 pattern. And down. Simandl for 6 notes, 3-2, 4-1, 2-1, 4-2. Right, there's that pivot from A to G. Then the tetrachords again. Tetrachord. And you can do that with any scale. So if I try an A scale, you'll see 1-4-1-2, 1-4-1-2. Pivot up to the second scale degree. Then 1-2-1-3, 1-2. And then 1-3, 1-3, 1-2-3. All right? So, no matter what happens, a student of mine can, if they know the starting pitch, can construct any scale. And they get so that they do this, within the first 4 minutes of picking up the bass if they want, going through all of them. All right? In later videos, I talk about my universal fingering, which actually doesn't even have that pivot to remember when you start on the E string. The same scale fingering works for every major scale, with the exceptions of F and E, but those are easy to get around. And then I also have similar fingerings for the minor scales that are easily rememberable. And I'll be talking about natural minor, I'll be talking about melodic minor, and I'll be talking about harmonic minor. I also have a similar concept for arpeggio fingerings. All of these scales and arpeggios are found in Basic Technique, my book, and you can find copies of it. I'll leave a link at the end of this video so that you could track it down if you'd like to obtain it. Hope you'd enjoyed this video, and see you next time.